All right, so this is our fifth session of the day, and our speaker, who's walking to close the door, I think, is Dr. Jonathan Scaccia from Pubtrawlr. He is the CEO and president. As a trained implementation scientist, he has 20 plus years of experience helping to translate research into action in a community-based settings. He wrote, coded, and deployed the underlying algorithms of the Pubtrawlr system. He is also principal of the research and evaluation firm of the Dawn Course Group, which manages a variety of evaluation contracts in nationally based settings. So now I'm going to turn over to you.
Thank you very much. Hey everyone, thank you very much for coming today. So, I like to sort of start and think about things from a values-based perspective. So, I guess as I said in my bio, I've been working in this field like 20 plus years, and there's a lot of barriers that prevent good ideas from getting into practice, and there's a lot of consequences behind that. So the idea is, well, what maybe can we do about that? What are the levers that we can hit that are going to help us get good things to happen? So here's the team that we have working on this. My colleague, Steve's in the front row, so you can talk to either of us and come out. We got a booth out there. So let's start it from a values-based perspective here, because that's ultimately where we as a company start from. So science writ large is a public good. Now that's not just that you pay for it, but you do. It is something that is there that generates knowledge to help us as a community, as a global community. It is a moral imperative that we do a better job of getting things out there. Because the literature is actually kind of quite clear. From time of publication to time of implementation, it can take up to 17 years for something to get out there. 17 years. So there are a lot of really sort of practical consequences for this. Students are not getting the best knowledge. My head's still spinning from the previous session, and we're talking about sort of modernizing education. Are we modernizing to 2022, or are we modernizing to 2005? Industries may not be aware of current developments. So things that are the cutting edge of innovation might not be getting out there. And most importantly, patients may not be getting the best treatment. Do doctors have the most up-to-date knowledge about what does it take to treat specific conditions? So we often ask people working in this space, how much time do you spend staying current with the published, the peer-reviewed literature? And the answer is invariably not much. And then the follow-up was, well, how much time would you want, in this case, your doctor, to stay up to date? How much time would you want these professionals to spend making sure that the hottest stuff off the presses is being used and integrated into their thinking when they're making clinical decisions about you, your kids, or your parents? So what is this thing we cooked up? Well, it's just basically given time. It's just a better use of time. So Pubtrawlr is a web-based tool that takes thousands upon thousands of peer-reviewed articles and synthesizes, drills them down, clusters them so that we can identify the themes, topics, and trends and key findings across them. And we do that by leveraging AI and a specific subset of that called natural language processing. So let's pretend for a second that you're my buddy Joe. So Joe has a three-year-old. His name is Austin, and Austin was diagnosed on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, spectrum disorder. So Joe doesn't know anything about that, and he wants to be an informed parent. Where's he going to go for information? So I just pulled a couple of the databases that you might be able to look at. Oh, is that that's on an automatic shuffle. So maybe you start at Google, and you're going to get the phone book back, and things are going to be of varying quality. But Joe's an educated dude, so he might go to something more specific. There's just sort of no way to screen through this stuff. The ways that things come back from these academic articles and these academic databases are often ranked based off of relevance of keywords or of recency. So what Pubtrawlr does is it takes thousands of articles, in this case we pulled close to 3,000 articles, and clusters them down into 25. So we've effectively reduced key findings down into a manageable number that's going to help Joe be a better advocate for Austin. So what this looks like in practice is we generate a bunch of different visualizations that help people understand the way that things are relating to one another. And we published this article right here, me and my colleague Victoria. We published on the underlying science behind this last year. If you want to look it up, it's an open source article. But we do things that people can easily engage with. So this is something I did before we got here, looking at psychological safety and nursing. What are the main words that are appearing there? This is an example of different topics that are coming up in what's known as implementation science. So most of the stuff is in mental health, some stuff in learning, some stuff in psychological testing, and so on. So to do this, we pull in data from a bunch of different sources. So we're aggregating the medical and social science literature, so that's about 80 million articles. We're pulling in articles from computer science, from physics and astrophysics, mostly the harder, more physical sciences. Pulling in things from education, because the education literature does not perfectly overlap the social science literature. You'll get stuff on reading effectiveness and so on. And we're working to pull in other databases as well. Environmental science is something that we're currently cooking up. All of these things, by the way, are publicly available. So we don't have any licenses with providers like Elsevier or anything. We're scraping these publicly governmentally indexed databases of these articles that it's just, they're there. But the sense-making process to help make use of these things isn't there. And that's where Pubtrawlr is jumping in. So right now, what we're doing is we've basically paused our website. And this was an idea of Steve's that has just borne so much fruit. There's no purpose in doing any of this unless it's useful. That's the whole idea of Pubtrawlr is we're making things more accessible to our friends sitting out here. We're making things more accessible to you. So we're taking a lot of time to really sit down and talk with psychologists, talk with teachers, talk with students, talk with research professors, talk with community-based practitioners about how they use scientific information, what the barriers are to using scientific information, and then how can we redesign to adjust for those factors. Because, again, we want this stuff out there. We want this stuff to be used. So we ask people, what are the things the barriers to engaging with scientific research? Time is one. That's where the synthesis comes in. Jargon is another, and that's where algorithms like text simplification come in to sort of remove jargon-based words. And then what are the things that we can do to make things more accessible to people we're talking to, and their colleagues. So how can we spread this around? How can we design an output that makes sense for the hardcore research scientist who has hundreds of articles to go through, but also my buddy Joe, who wants just to understand what is the best possible behavioral treatment for a 3-year-old with autism. So while we're under this veil to do this really deep customer research, we launched this newsletter, which is sort of a preview of the types of things that we do, called The Week in Science. So what we do is we scrape the articles from pretty much the most influential journals out there, the top 5. So this is like Science, Nature, the New England Journal of Medicine, New England Journal of Medicine, the Journal of the American Medical Society, and does it say it there? And Lancet. So we pull from those, and we cluster all of the articles that have been published in the week. Sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 100. And we say, okay, of these, what are the most representative? What are the things that really made a difference over the past week? And we summarize those findings in plain language, again, using AI algorithms. Of course, we review it, but the idea is, what's the key message that you can take from this? What have we learned over the past week? We see some stuff on quantum, so that's coming from the physics literature and things that we're doing with very, very low state matter. But we also recognize that there's an educational component to our mission. So it's not enough just to sort of throw a product out there and say, see you later. So one thing that we're doing, I guess a week from today, is we're running a really short webinar, half an hour, with one of my colleagues who is a Penn State alumni, worked with, does anyone know EPIS, the Evidence Prevention Institute? All right, so no one knows EPIS. But she worked with EPIS, and EPIS is a Penn State initiative. So her and I were running a webinar basically talking about, well, what are the meta lessons that you need to read a scientific article? So if I were to throw something down in front of you, could you extract sort of the main things from it? Could you engage it? This is not like you're picking up some William Faulkner here. There are different styles of writing, different styles of engaging, and different ways that you can get the information from it. And we have some systems that, mental heuristics that you can do to make this much easier. So I actually put the QR code up here. If you want to register for this webinar, it's totally free. It's just important for us to be able to sort of use different levers to get this idea out there. So next Thursday, 2 o'clock, if you're interested, you can come and talk to me or Steve about that. And really, what we see happening in the next couple months is really building out this sort of really small version of our work while we continue to do this deeper customer research. So we're going to continue with the Week in Science newsletter. We're going to be starting a referral program so that people are better able to share and are incentivized to share because we want people to be more fluent in this. We're going to be providing things like long-form articles that really go into depth on scientific issues. But we also want to recognize that you may have specialized interests. I fly with a bunch of public health people, so they have an interest in the public health sector. I certainly know more than enough teachers who have an interest in that pedagogical literature. So we want to be able to continue to develop more specialized issues, so to speak, to help distribute this. And this is all in service of building out our core algorithm so that when we come back around, hopefully October, November-ish, after talking to a couple hundred people about what makes science useful, we release this back to the world and help people more effectively consume this stuff. And that's why. Because this is not just a fun coding project. This is something that we view as, like I said, a moral imperative, because we all know the consequences of scientific illiteracy, and the more that we can move the needle a little bit and ease the barriers for consumption, well, that's a win for me, it's a win for Steve, and hopefully it's a win for all of you. So I'm done yapping, and that's all I got.
Any questions for him?
Yes.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to run the microphone to you. Here you go.
So, just to be upfront, all of this is well above my head. However, I was just thinking, I'm hearing you saying that you are going to have an AI system that can write articles for us. Is that what I heard? Or read articles for us? Is that what it's doing?
So what we do is we use artificial intelligence to examine the content of articles, and we examine the content of articles very quickly because we're using computers. So what happens then is we're identifying the way that different words are related to one another in that. So you might see breast cancer happening more frequently, or breast cancer treatment. Once we identify those word clusters, we're able to, with the computer, extract higher level themes that cross many, many different articles. And the AI does this very, very quickly. So it's reading the articles in the sense that it's identifying words and the relationships between those words. Once we get to that point, we then use the AI to say, to reduce things down from very complex sentences to simple language. So we're basically translating, like you would translate from English into Spanish, or English into German, or German into Hindi. We're translating from jargon English into simple English. And by doing that, we're hoping that makes it sort of less scary to pick up an article, because these things can be very difficult to read. Very difficult to read, even though there's beautiful stuff in there. Yep. Yes?
Oh, sure, since I'm right here. Thanks.
Oh,
I apologize. So I'm a scholar. I do research, and my question is, how do you distinguish between the nuances between all the different fields of study, right, in their language? And how do you identify what you would consider simple context?
Yeah, so
right? There's a cultural, my issue is the cultural insensitivity in being able to say this is simple language in terms of communicating.
So the benchmark you usually target is like a 5th grade reading level. That's usually where you try to get to. And then certainly with some scientific topics, it's not easy to do and not achievable in a lot of cases. What you're taught with the first question is actually a little bit more interesting. Well, to me, it's a little bit more interesting. How do you pick up on the nuances between words? And you said the word culture, and actually that's actually an excellent example of that, because when you're talking about like organizational culture, like shared values within some sort of business versus culture of a community and so on, they're going to refer to very different things. So can the algorithms pick up the differences between the use of words that have different meanings in different contexts? And sort of. That's an area of ongoing research, not just that the world is doing, but like we're also doing as well. And it would not be I would be remiss to not say that there's like a lot of biases that are baked into some of the more advanced language models out there, and that's just an area that people are all continually trying to improve to make sure that the answers reflect as much as possible an unbiased understanding of the underlying findings. Yeah.
So my name's Joe Rinaldi. I'm faculty at Penn State in Hazleton.
Hey.
One of the things that I was curious about this, first off, the philosophy behind what you're doing, I agree with completely. Get the knowledge to as many people as can have access to it. I definitely love open publishing and all these other things. One of the things that I'm thinking is we know that scientific articles are just exploding as universities and the whole tenure pressure to publish expands. We're just pushing out articles to the extent that, thinking back to my own grad school time, like my research advisor used to be able to go grab an article and give it to me. 10,000 articles came out in the past year that are related to what I do. There's no possible way that one human can read them, like you said. So to what extent is this also useful for researchers as a way of distilling? Are you looking at that at all to, I mean, certainly you want to make it accessible to everybody and get the language accessible to everybody, but even tools that are just good at identifying key points and helping to synthesize findings for those researchers would be really valuable.
There's I guess two parts to that. One, the sort of the immediate relevance, and two, like my our 3 to 5 year plan. So the first is we have talked with researchers, a couple people at the University of Kansas, who talk about like this being useful for like scoping reviews to help siphon things down, and the system can handle really complex like queries. So as much as possible as we wanted to be responsive to what is the best treatment for autism, you could also do things like autism treatment and preschoolers not male. Like you could do like all those really complex Boolean queries and get it to drill down. So it does handle that and does provide that capability. Where I want to go, and we can't now, but it's possible, is to be able to extract findings from the tables specifically, extract findings, and that's going to require more types of neural network architecture, and then be able to sort of automate the meta-analysis process. And that's been a goal of many people for a while. It's only recently, with the use of convolutional neural networks and better optical character recognition, that's been able to sort of take a step ahead. And we were actually Steve and I were just talking to some people yesterday who are doing some stuff in that area. And it's going to take work, but that's why we're doing this, because like that's an important thing to do, to be able to say across these 500 studies on autism treatment in kids, in male children of 3-year-olds, what's the best behavioral treatment for them? I want to know that, Joe wants to know that, and lots of other people probably do too.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it for the session.